Hey guys, I'm Camelia and I'm back again with another video. So this one is also an opinion one. I know I've been doing a lot of these, but the world is never sick and tired of giving me things to complain, raise awareness about. So I have talked about racism, including internalized racism in the past, but what I have not talked about is kind of the cultural difference when you're faced with your own culture, or rather people, of your own culture. That kind of internal war, it's not really a war, but that's what it feels like. That kind of internal conflict, as well as conflict with those of your same community, race, ethnicity, existence, anything like that. So I'm not sure if you guys know this or if you watched my old videos, but I identify as an American Indian, but I was born in India and I came here when I was 10, so in the year 2006. And since then, as you guys might have known, I've had a lot of kind of trouble fitting in and things like that. So I've talked about America and me fitting in and me finally belonging here, all that. What I have not talked about is something that is separate from my internalized racism that was there previously. And this is kind of just the fact that there is such, a huge difference between, people of the same community, if they live in a place that is different than their birthplace, or even if people who do live in their birthplace, they could still be facing so many differences and so much, kind of hatred and things like that, if they just identify to a different community. Like, I know with a lot of countries, there are several types of people who live in those countries, which adds to the beauty of diversity. But then, as is human nature, they don't get along. But what's even worse is when you're of that country and you live here, but you feel like you don't even get recognized or accepted by, people of your own country. And it's honestly no one's fault really, because we're all just so different that we are more shaped, by the environment that we grow up in, even more than our culture. So even if you do follow your own culture and try to adjust to it, there will still be a significant amount of difference in, the way your thought process, your value and belief systems, and just your personality and attributes grow, just based on location, kind of the people you grow around with, and even things you see online or on TV. So for me, let's just start with an example. And obviously, just a disclaimer, I'm not here to offend anyone, not anyone of Indian origin who lives in India or an NRI like me. So I'm not sure if people of other cultures have faced this as well, but I have really faced it. So when I lived in India as a kid, I do have some memories of it, and I still kind of hold on to those memories, and that is what I base my understanding, my opinion of India by. But the reality is that that was 2006, and it may not seem like it was, a long time back, but things have really evolved since then, in terms of politics, in terms of just society in general, like all over the world with globalization and things like that. Ideologies have really changed just all across the world. So obviously my interpretation of India, what it was like in 2006, and my memories are not necessarily representative of India right now. So I guess it's kind of like a culture shock. When you think of culture shock, you just think of, a literal shock in terms of culture if you go from your place, like your country or city, to another place. But you don't really think of culture shock when you think about your own country or your own place. So, for example, when I talk to my relatives, the way that they talk to me, I still thought that my opinion of what India was like in 2006 held true, because I was not really aware of Indian politics, more like aside from what I've heard from my parents, relatives, things like that. Like, I don't actually live there, and I haven't lived there for a long time. I haven't grown up there, so obviously it's not going to be the same thing as what I hear. So it was just such a shock that it almost kind of made me feel bad, where I felt like half guilty that, I was almost judging these people for being different than me. And I felt like these people were really judging me. So before I got social media, I did not really have a chance to connect with anyone, from my own country besides my relatives, who obviously were, not that representative of the entire India, because obviously you can't represent an entire country just by yourself. So I didn't have any contact back home. I didn't have any contact with my childhood friends. So I really had no idea what things were like. And when I saw Bollywood, I saw their movies, I thought that really represented India. So of course I was wrong, because when I got on social media and I really wanted to connect with, people who were from India so that I could get the experience through them, because even when I did visit India, it was just, my relatives obviously treated me so well and all honestly adjusted for me, that I did not really realize what it was, living there for them. I did not really get to experience the actual root of the culture per se, because we focused on other things like catching up, shopping, things like that. So when I did friend, people from India from social media, it was just a complete culture shock for me as well as for them, where we both tried adjusting and we both tried relating, like we all did, and it was just not fun. Like, first of all, I used to know Hindi a lot better when I was younger, because I lived in kind of like a Hindi speaking state, but I only lived there for the first 7 years of my life. And after that, I lived in kind of like an English speaking, or not an English speaking, but like the South, where, Hindi is not really that popular. So I haven't spoken in Hindi since I was like 7. So of course, when I connected with these people, I knew enough basic Hindi to talk to them, but I did not get the memes, I did not get the jokes, I did not get the references. And of course, I was kind of like ashamed to say that, because they would totally judge me. But obviously you can tell when a person really gets your jokes and is laughing at them, versus just kind of like pretending to laugh like I did. And eventually I kind of like lost touch with all of those friends, because they tried obviously, getting along with me, but there were just so many things that I just did not get. And over time, like the more, exposure I got on social media, the more, I guess, kind of bitter I became, or the more bitter the relationships became, because I not only found myself not getting along to, with the memes, but also to like the entire ideology and thought processes. And I honestly felt like I was too complicated for most of these, because I even tried like being really good friends with a couple of them. I thought I was maybe going to visit them the next time I go to India. I was even open to the fact that, yeah, I can, I really genuinely thought that maybe one day one of them can move here and we can be best friends or even date or something like that. And then I found out that it wasn't just little pop culture differences, but it was a literal difference in ideology, that, neither of us are wrong, but it's just based on the environment we grew up in, where I thought that I was just not simple enough for them, and they probably thought that I was a little too conceited, because of course, because when you do live here in like kind of a Western environment, your parents may be traditional, mine aren't, but the way I have been kind of raised, very protected and sheltered, but also my parents have been very open-minded, so I didn't have any restrictions like that, that some of my peers may face in India. So they just thought like maybe she's too open and too like leaning towards the left in terms of politics and ideals and even things like that. And like even some of the memes they shared, they really did trigger me, because that kind of showed their thoughts on, what kind of person they want to be with, or what kind of person they want to be friends with. And I was just like, well, I don't really identify or fit in with any of these people. I didn't know a lot of terms even, so I didn't get the ideologies behind that. And then it was like, everything from notions of beauty, notions of any little pop culture, notions of political ideologies, just like even what we want from life, that was also very different. So it's just like I don't really know how to connect with them, and it has nothing to do with the fact of like language or anything, because I was able to communicate rather easily in Hindi. I would think, I don't know, but it was the little judgments, that no one really gave me, but it was just me assuming from the things that they used to share or the things they would talk about, where I was like, I really don't fit in. And I wonder if the other person's also feeling the same way, like if they think I'm conceited or too sheltered, or if my problems are just too first world or something like that. Like I pretty much was like, we don't relate to each other, which is just very strange. Yeah, I did expect there to be some cultural difference, because based on your location where you grow up, obviously there is going to be some difference, but I didn't know it would be such a huge amount of difference. And it's like the difference is there even in some of the same things we celebrate. For example, for festivals, like our biggest festival for Bengali is Durga Puja, and even the way Durga Puja is celebrated overseas versus Durga Puja in India, like the pandals over there, the Durga Puja, just like hopping around in pandals, that whole versus that whole community feel here where we have smaller Durga Pujas. It's like even the festivals, everything we do is different, but at the same time, it's like we are so same. Like when I look at videos on BuzzFeed India, or if I watch movies, I'm like, a certain part of the audience, I fit in with that. Like obviously I'm not from there, but I pretty much identify with that. So it's like, pop culture, social media, and movies, it may be super inflated in that it's not relatable to the common people, but it has to have a level of some kind of connection with a certain niche or something like that. Like there, because everything is based off of real life, even if it is inflated, just somewhere in the root, it is based. So I was just like, well, I see people like that on there. I see people like that on BuzzFeed. I see, people like that on articles about India. So where are they, and why am I not finding them? So then I realized, the SM is a broad world, but it's also a short world where things are kind of just based on algorithms. So if I get connected to one type of person, I will keep connecting to them based on where the algorithm leads me. And with online, miscommunication is also a thing. And also, like, if I do connect with a niche audience, then obviously it's going to be much harder to find people like me. So at that point, I lost a lot of those friendships where I tried to be obviously very cordial with them, but it was just not fitting in. But I didn't really want to have that attitude, because my friends, here, they don't really fit in with the people back home, and they don't even try to fit in. So they were not even surprised with my experiences. But I don't want to be like that, because it's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I'm limiting myself, and I want to connect with people from back home. But at the same time, it's like I've seen online this whole war of Indians in India versus NRI, and everything's just so bitter, and both sides just spew so much, hatred towards each other, like calling each other tacky or sheltered, or just I don't know, like a bunch of bitterness and hatred, where it's like we are all people. So we need to, even if we don't connect to each other, we can be cordial, and we can learn from each other, because globalization is happening. So a few years into the future, it's not like people are going to stay stagnant from one place, or just belong to one ethnicity, or have just one type of culture. No, people are going to have several types of cultures. People are slowly starting to, spread all over India, spread all over the world. So you really need to learn how to, connect to each other, kind of learn from each other, because if you just base and judge people off of your own culture, it's called ethnocentrism, where you think that, a person should be just like a person from your own culture should be. And obviously, like I said, with globalization, there are just so many different things about even one culture, like Indian culture. Like even in India, there are so many diverse states and diversity that obviously a lot of fights happen there too, because where comes diversity, there also comes ethnocentrism, and like that whole thing that my culture is better than yours, because human nature is like that. Like that's how we try to identify by keeping our culture alive, because a lot of people have that myth that, you know, if they don't try to keep their culture alive, they will go extinct in like a few years. And that's the idea that a lot of people own in their heads, rather than trying to, you know, find out about different cultures, find out to just different ethnicities, talk to different people who may be from your own culture but all around the world, to get kind of like a varied knowledge base, as well as kind of like a varied view of the world. But of course that's not the case, because with things that are happening because of politics, because so many political changes are taking place, that is literally dividing a country. Like even in America, there's the left versus right. So in India too, I'm not really sure, but I'm sure that some of the same things are happening, that whole left versus right, where in India, I think that the right is the majority, but obviously political things are shaping, you know, people's ideologies and their preferences, where they think in terms of politics, they think kind of in terms of beliefs, which are then enforced by their favorite political party. So then it creates some kind of a bias, where it's like not just on a political level, but on any level. If you find a difference between you and another person where you don't get along with them, nowadays it's like you don't just sit quiet and let them go. No, like you start fighting online in real life, and then it just becomes harmful and it does nothing constructive. So obviously I feel like even in my childhood, unity was a lot better than what it is right now, because we're just literally fighting with our own people. So how can we get along with the world, you know? So I just hope my spiel just really shows you that it is okay to be different from one another, even if you are part of one culture. And it is totally okay to have differences, but we should learn from these differences and we should grow, instead of kind of judging each other by, you know, the place we belong to, or if we have more than one identity, because it's not our fault if, you know, it's not our fault, and neither do we choose where we're going to be born in, which family we're going to be born in, or if our fathers or mothers, you know, move us at a young age to a different country. Obviously it's not in our control to do anything. So rather than thinking that I'm better than these people because blah blah blah, I'm an American Indian, or I'm Indian, or, you know, whichever race you belong to, it's good to acknowledge that yes, I am so and so, but I'm also gonna try to have an open view of the world, an open view of my country, so that I can learn more, I can grow more, I can work more with people, because it's important to get along with people on a personal, professional, and just worldwide point of view. So that's all I have for now, and thank you.